Why are they doing it? Why are they playing their sport? Do they love it, or are they doing it to prove themselves?
If you want to fix your reality, look in first.
Like if it starts within us, we can't just expect to just work on them, because if we still have those limiting beliefs, they're still going to keep getting that same input.
I believe that a child's limiting beliefs start with a parent. If you're around parents that gossip, that are lazy, that complain about the coaches all the time, guess what you're going to do?
The most important thing of life is living here in the now.
Every financial decision we make ties back into a bigger purpose for our family.
What money gives us the ability to do is open doors, progress, grow.
We need to redefine what perfection is. There's always a good thing about a coach. There's always a bad thing about a coach. How do you deal with it as a parent? Guys, welcome to Compounded Human, the Inner Game podcast. I'm Jacob Lowe, founder CEO of Compounded Human, helping athletes break through limiting beliefs and build unshakable confidence through their identity. I'm here with my co-coach, Langston Pearlvid. Langston, how are we doing?
Doing great. It's great to be here. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. It's always a pleasure, to share the knowledge and insight that, we've had the blessing, to accrue over the years, and, we've had the fortune to spread to others. So we're grateful to have you here, and we're excited for you guys to tune in because we have some gems to drop today. Parents, tune in, take notes, and apply these with your kids and watch them prosper.
All right, Langston. We've talked about the most important thing when it comes to parenting an athlete is figuring out the why. What's more important to you, the child's why or the parent's why?
That's an interesting question because, in my opinion, they're both just as important. So to answer to you parents, I would say first, it's important to understand your why. Why do you want to be a parent? You already are. But sometimes we don't think about, those things. Why are you a parent? Why do you want to be a great parent? Why do you want your child to succeed and all of that? And so I think it's super important that the parent has a why to then make sure that your child has a why. And so for the same thing, if your kid is playing their sport or doing whatever they want to do in their life, because some of you might not be sport parents, some of you might be arts and craft parents, which is great, right? You love we'll get into unconditional support and love later on in the podcast. Love your kids regardless. But help them understand why. Why are they doing it? Why are they playing their sport? Do they love it, or are they doing it to prove themselves? And if it's the latter, then help them understand that they don't have to play, right? If that's their reason, then let's not force our kids to do things that they don't want to do. But if they love it, if there's certain aspects that are deeply rooted in them, that's why they play the game, then that's going to help you and help them to get the best out of them. And so I think it's a huge combination of both. The parents have to be clear on why they want their kids to have success, why they are, willing to be sport parents. And then the same thing from the kids. The kids, they have to know why that they're playing, so that the parents, when they're investing their time and money and effort and everything, even though it's unconditional, that they're on the same page,
Of course.
And so, I kind of like to hear how you would, answer that same question. How do you view the parent and the child's why?
I think it's very important to obviously know why you want to play football, right? Why I want to play basketball, well, football, of course. But like I think you said, they're equally as important. And it's important to know, why does your child want to play that sport? Multiple sports, go into theater, go into swimming, right? And then be very clear on the inputs it's going to take from both sides. We'll talk about that and why it's important to be very clear on it, but to also have that two-way relationship with it. So I think understanding why somebody wants to play a sport, do we support that? Are we going to support that? Why or why not, right? Like football is a huge example, right? Do I want my child playing this sport so young? My parents didn't let me play until like I was 10 or 11, I think. My mom was against it. Actually, my dad was against it. Mom was for it. Dad was against it, which is kind of funny, yeah. Now that I remember. But it's extremely important to know the whys, the purpose, and then also understand the growth that is more important there. What does football teach my son that he's going to want to know in life? I remember I had a coach, Coach Guthrie, my first ever head football coach.
Shout
in
out
tackle.
Coach Guthrie.
Shout out Coach Guthrie. I haven't talked to him in a while. Might send him this.
He'd be proud.
He'd be proud. But he said, like, you think football's hard? Wait for life, right? But football is the only sport that can really prepare you for what life is going to bring. And I thought that was beautiful, because I'm like, life's going to knock you down, right? Life's going to be hard. Football's going to introduce you to that. And that was beautiful. And you brought up something very interesting that I want to bring up, that we've been talking about a lot within Polaris, our other coaching group, and then talk about a little bit with us, inner and external reality. And we've talked about it, the parents' inner reality might be a reflection of the kid's external. So I believe that a child's limiting beliefs start with a parent. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Why?
Well, for one, this is super important to recognize with kids. Kids are their minds are so moldable, Play-Doh-like, plastic-like, it can be the best thing in the world for them or the worst thing, right? They receive everything that their environment is giving them. And so when a parent has a limiting belief, such as money is scarce, right? If we spend money on something, then we're going to be without. Then the kid, what are they going to believe? If that's the input that they're used to getting, right? If that's what is familiar to them, right? And so, of course, yeah, the kids, whatever they believe comes from somewhere. And who are they spending the most time with? Parents, teachers, coaches, peers. And so it's really important, parents, to take the time for yourself, right? Everything that we teach and coach isn't just about athletics. It's all of it goes far beyond. And Jake has, the pleasure of also working with entrepreneurs and, all of the people, the wonderful people you get to work with. And it's all rooted on building yourself up from the inside out. And so parents, if you have a limiting belief, just like we do, when we have limiting beliefs, we go within and we work on it. And so it's sometimes the hardest thing to do, but it's the most rewarding thing to do. And so, if we think about you as parents, we think about us as parents. I'm not a parent yet, but hopefully soon. We want to help our kids, right? And if they have some internal limiting beliefs, and we want to help them, does it not make sense for us to figure it out for ourselves first? And like Jake is saying, like if it starts within us, we can't just expect to just work on them. Because if we still have those limiting beliefs, then they're still going to keep getting that same input. So even though we're telling them one thing, their nervous system and subconscious is like, something's not adding up. Mm-hmm. And so it's super important. And there's many ways to do it. And, we're not calling any of you out and saying, you're wrong or you're bad or any of that. You're human. You're human. And it's super important to recognize that and to unconditionally love yourself, like we mentioned. And I believe, and I talk about this a lot with friends, with Jacob, with others, Carson, to truly love people, to truly love those around you, sometimes you got to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And sometimes you got to do that with yourself, right? Jacob's that way with me in the business, with the coaching, with all of it. Hey, this is how you did in this environment. You showed up a little bit reserved, or you need to have a little bit more conviction in yourself. You need to have a little bit more faith. It's not always what I want to hear. But, as a high level person and, aspiring to be higher level and to bring my kids into this world with that mentality, it's like, I appreciate that. And so take it upon yourselves. And if you need help, of course, reach out. There's tons of resources out there that we could send you. There's conversations that we could have or other people can have. But start with yourself and help yourself, which will in turn help your kids, which will in turn help you, which will be the most beautiful cycle. So, I kind of want to go back. I do want you to address that as well, but I wanted to go back to the why. And the route that I wanted to go with that is if we're talking to the parents right now, what can they do right now? Like, is there a step-by-step process to figure out their why and their kids' why? Is there a blueprint? Is there a document that says how to form your why? Like, how would you help somebody establish their why?
Like the parent purpose SOP?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to make that. Okay. The best way to get any ideas, thoughts solved, or at least get that ball rolling to a solution is getting pen to paper. So we have our athlete's journal. Terrian Williams, my DB from Bucknell, he journals before every game. My quarterback, Jack Moses from Benedictine College, he journals. My basketball player from California Riverside, Denzel Hines, he journals. The baseball player we trained, AJ Atkin, he journals constantly. I carry my journal around everywhere I go. I journal at lunch. I journal when I need to. I journal while I work. Langston keeps his journal on him. But going back to the question, get out your journal, right? Make a T-chart, pros and cons of supporting, or like, what am I doing well? Excuse me. What am I doing well and what am I not doing well in my child's growth? Okay. I'm doing this, this, and this, and I'm not doing this, this, and this. Okay. What is the first action step to get whatever is on the side of I'm not doing well to the other side? I'm not there for my child. Okay. Do I need to have a conversation with him? Do I need to set a standard? Hey, I just can't make it to all your games because I've got, another child, their games, right? Oh, I got work, right? I got to do this, got to do that. Set the expectation early, right? Let's go to that example, right? If you say you have a football player and a volleyball player, right? Conflicts, same game time, right? Parents probably split that then. What if one's not happy that the other parent's not there? Got to set that expectation early, right? Because if you're in the crowd, right, especially in high school, you know if your parents are there or not. You know exactly where they're sitting.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look over, it's like, my dad's not here. Why? You don't want that energy affecting you. You feel those eyeballs. You feel that energy, right? And athletes, we talk about placing energy. It's not the point of this conversation, right? But set that expectation, set the standard now. Okay, this is what I want to do. I don't agree with it. Get vulnerable, get open, get comfortable, right? What's the best way to solve problems? Have hard conversations that are really not that hard, right?
Yeah, they're just hard before you start them.
They're hard. It's the anxiety of them. It's the made up scenarios in our mind that are going to happen. It's the potential conflict that we don't want to face, that we don't want to encounter. Oh, we had a bad conversation about this topic in the past, so it's going to be bad again, right? Anxiety. That's basically what anxiety is at the end of the day, right? And that's why you and I have such an open communication about coaching, about our life, about everything. Because we know if you and I are off, if we're not aligned, if our mind, body, and spirit aren't aligned within us, we can't move forward. We can't impact the lives. We can't impact you on the other side of the camera, right? We can't impact athletes. I can't help Nick get to those months that we want to get to. I can't impact those entrepreneurs, right? That's our why. That's our purpose. Our decisions don't come from the money. They don't come from our time. It does time a little bit, right? It comes from how's our energy going to be spent? Is money a factor here, right? Is this the right decision to get to X, to get to the bigger picture, right? So to wrap it back around, if you want to fix your reality, look in first. Jeremy, right? Jeremy says that. It's our business coach, by the way. Beautiful. I want to go back into something you talked about, environment early on in your last answer. Peers, coaches, teammates, all that kind of stuff. Your nervous system has to default to the level of your environment. If you're around money, your nervous system's going to find a way to make money, right? It has to in order to feel safe. That's why when you go to a place that's extremely luxurious, right? Like I went to one of the most exquisite yacht clubs in Florida, right? A couple months ago, I felt way out of place. If I had stayed there, if I had stayed at that hotel, been around those people, I would have figured out how to fit in. It has to. Your nervous system has to, right? Because it feels in danger if you don't fit in. as a human. So to tie that back into parents, if you're around parents that gossip, that are lazy, right, that complain about the coaches all the time, guess what you're going to do? It's going to bleed into you. It's not conscious, it's subconscious, it's automatic, it just happens, right? That's why you tell your kid not to hang out with that certain friend. It's not because he wants to do those things yet, he's going to want to. You're going to want to complain to the coach. You're going to want to, hate on the coach, right? And that ties into another thing. There's a reason you can like that coach. There's a reason you also can't like that coach. Right?
Yeah.
It's all about reframing your automatic perspective. But before I get too much into it, we've talked about that commitment a lot. I want to dive into it. And we talked about this yesterday preparing for this podcast. What do you think if a parent complains about the time commitment it takes for their son or daughter to be great at a sport? How does that project onto the child? What would you say?
Yeah, man, it's putting unnecessary pressure on the kid, first of all. It's telling the child that there's a lot of weight on this time that they're allocating, and that they better make it worth it, which comes from a very needy place, which comes from a place of lack. And so you're telling your kid essentially that if they don't perform up to a certain standard with your time, which comes off quite entitled, that they're not enough. And how do you think that's going to make them feel? Pretty insecure, And
Just to stop you there for a second, how does that reflect into their performance? Right? Because when the bullets start flying and our nervous system becomes more automatic, because it has to, because of the pressure, how does that reflect into their performance when, you as the parent, you're complaining about the time, you're complaining about that commitment? Oh, I'm missing work for this. I can't watch my show for this. I can't spend time with my other child for this. What does that do to a child's performance?
Yeah. Well, it makes them play with a sense of pressure, with a sense of urgency that's not good, right? We talk about urgency being, wanting to get somewhere, do something with energy, with passion, but this is a different type of urgency. It's putting them, in a pressure of feeling weight on their shoulders. On their shoulders. You hear that term used with people when they feel pressure or uncomfortable. I have this kind of weight on my shoulders, and then you ask a kid if they're feeling stress and anxiety and pressure, and their parents, they need to prove themselves to their parents. If you ask them, do they think they're going to perform better that way, or if they get to go out and just play the game they love freely, no expectations? And of course, the kids are going to say when they can play freely with no expectations, they're going to perform better. So to answer your question, they're going to play with these bad emotions and feelings and worry, and as a result, they're going to play tense. They're going to play with a need.
How about those thoughts? What are the thoughts that are going to go through? Because you're doing a great job. I totally agree. I want to paint the picture here for the parents, right? Because you're on the basketball court, you play basketball, you're sitting there, your parents are both, you can feel the eyeballs looking at you, right? And then you just know one of them's complaining about the time, one of them's complaining about the way you're playing, excuse me. How does that draw into the decisions you make on the court? How does that make you feel when you get benched because you made one mistake? What are you feeling? What are you thinking about then?
Yeah, I mean, you're trying not to make eye contact with your parents because you let them down, and they might not even be saying that you let them down, but subconsciously that's what's going on, and it's sadness. It's feeling like you're not enough. It's feeling like you're a failure, not only to them but also to yourself and to your team, and now you're not present. We talk about when you're a high level person. When you're a person, the most important thing of life is living here in the now. There's no other time that we can truly live in, but many of us try to live in the past. We try to live in the future. And when a kid is worried about parents' expectations and what they're saying and what's going on, they're not in the present.
Of course.
You can't enjoy something if you're not in the present.
It's a great job. That was beautiful. I want to add to that a little bit as well. Like, put yourself, parent, you're on the bench right now. Let's say you played basketball, right? And there's like 3 minutes left in the game. You were a starter. You played all 29 minutes up to it, right? You're down. Your team's down 17. Coach is like, you're done for the night, right? Let's say you went shot 20% from the field. Defense wasn't great, right? and it just wasn't your night, but you put forward some great effort. But your parents are very conditional about the way they treat you on the way home. Meaning, let me make that a little simpler. If you play well, car ride's great. If you don't play well, car ride's not so well. Okay, what does that do to the child? I'm thinking, I gotta score. I gotta get in the basket. I gotta make this block. Gotta get this rebound. I gotta lay it on the floor. I have to. Nervous system's in fight or flight. You're in danger. It's uncertainty. You make rash decisions. You make poor decisions like that. Sport like basketball, right? I always tell basketball players this. There are so many right decisions when you're on the floor, right? Shoot, drive, pass, right? There's so many right decisions in basketball. There's not a lot of sports like that.
It's an interesting perspective.
It is an interesting perspective,
I like that.
right? But when you're in that need, when you're in that uncertainty, when you're in that danger, when you're making decisions not from a place of presence and in the moment, but from making a decision to what we're talking about. Poor car ride home. My parents are not going to, treat me well, or they're going to yell at me or whatever, right? You're going to make the first right decision. And it may not be the actual decision that you would have made in the present moment. Does that make sense? They're thinking, like you said, they're not present. They're thinking about the poor car ride. They're thinking about, I got to go home and do homework after that, right? I'm going to get to bed late. Everybody at school is going to talk about it tomorrow, right? That's all they can think about instead of being present in the moment and giving it their best.
That's a great point. Do you have more to add to that?
My question for you would be, what would you do on the car ride? But say what you want to say first.
No, so that's a great point. And I was going to say too that, and this is kind of more tailored to as players get more and more reps. But after a while of training in a sport or training in anything, your nervous system knows what to do, right? In a game situation, you go to the hole and center steps to you and somebody's open, or there's a potential to you don't have necessarily time to think about that. Your nervous system knows what to do in that time.
I love it.
So if we put that pressure, then we're essentially blocking our ability to just play in the flow of what we already know to do in that moment. Whereas if we just let them be in flow and love the game and love why they play and just be there and enjoy it, they're going to play with that creativity, right? That's where you see players jump up and spin around and pass the ball. And you're like, how do they think to do that? And it's like,
they don't.
They're not thinking, they're just playing. And it just comes to them. But it's like, that's fun to watch, right?
Of course.
But it's not fun to watch the kid who catches the ball and then tucks it and, they double team him and then he has to call timeout or he gets the ball stolen. And it's, that pressure. It's like we're truly remarkable as humans, what we can do, what we're capable of unconsciously. So, yeah, I wanted to add that in because
I want to add one more thing to that. I want to divert to another part of the commitment it takes to have a great athlete. Okay, so back to your point about the nervous system. I'll tie back to what I was saying. The more you have those poor car rides, the more you yell at your kid, the more you're not happy with your kid because of a result that they can't fully control, their nervous system gets used to it. The programming becomes more solid, more wired, more rigid, right?
it's almost saddening to hear that, to listen to you
And
just
it's
vocalize.
automatic. And nobody understands this. Nobody does at that age. The parents don't get it. It's totally fine, right? That's why we do what we do. But kids don't even get it, man. Why do I feel that pressure? They don't understand that. They don't understand why. Cool. The second part of the commitment, the tough one, the dollar aspect. It's not easy. You probably don't even want to look at the final picture, right? In America, this was a study done 10 years ago. Cost $250,000 to raise a kid. This was done 10 years ago. This is probably upwards of 300. It's probably upwards 300, 350 now. Talk to me about how we see money as a tool and not commodity.
Yeah. Well, that stat alone is pretty mind-boggling. But I want to preface this by saying I grew up with this perspective of money as being scarce And if we spend money, then we're going to be without money, and there's a stress and a chaos and a worry around it. And those who have money they were just born into it. And so perspective has shifted tremendously since then. And so to your point, Jake, the way we view money now is, like you said, a tool. A tool. What does a tool do? It allows you to create and build and do more things. And so we hear so many parents come to us, and not just parents, we also hear the kids say it, but if you've been listening to this point, you understand that didn't come from them, right? We hear so many parents saying that this is expensive, like I don't, another team I got to pay for, and frankly, it's just the wrong perspective on money, because money at the end of the day is just paper. It's not even a real thing. It's just something that is transferred with value. And so what money gives us the ability to do is open doors, progress, grow. And we encourage, and this is something that we talk about with ourselves, I talk about it with my wife and my family. We encourage all of you to look at money as a tool to invest in your child, in yourself, in your family. I mean, think about all of the ways that a parent could invest in their child.
And themselves.
They can use the money as a tool to help them go somewhere. Like we can rattle a couple off. We can help the kid develop internally, which I recommend starting there. We can help them develop in their sport, develop their body physically in the gym.
Tutors.
School, like financial literacy.
Financial literacy is a big one, but also it kind of ties back to the balance, right? What do we need to invest to make sure that our child is still having enough balance in their life, right? Like we don't really care about balance anymore, right? Like the work-life balance to us is out the window, right? It wasn't even ever a consideration for either of us, right? But kids need it, right? As much as I would love to train a kid who doesn't worry about school, sport, life balance, right? It's not stable. It's not really a possibility, unfortunately, for us. So we have to make sure that there's a fine line and a balance there. But the money piece goes back to the why. Okay, every financial decision we make ties back into a bigger purpose for our family. What do we want for Langston? What do we want for Jake? Right? What do we need to do for ourselves financially to make sure we're solvent, make sure we're the best version of ourselves? It goes back to the limiting beliefs. It goes back to a parent's inner reality that's reflected into a child's external reality, right? So every decision you make, time, effort, and money ties back to the family's purpose, not just the child's, right? I know it's going to sound weird for us, not just the parents as well, but as a collective, right? Because really, if you break down our goal, right? Yeah, we're giving the athletes the tools, we're giving the parents the tools, we're trying to create a relationship between them. Because if that relationship is right, if they can have that open communication, if they can have the vulnerability within those four walls of the house, right? They'll have it with the coaches. Child will have it with the teammates, right? It's really all we're teaching at the end of the day, communication and purpose to both children and parents. And it's an interesting, like you said earlier, cycle. I love that.
We touched on vulnerability. So I want you to go a little bit deeper into that, because that was a point that I wanted to bring up anyway. Kind of talk on the importance of vulnerability. What does it mean to be vulnerable? And because I feel like there's a negative connotation for many people with vulnerability. Same thing with surrendering. People hear surrender and they think giving up, waving the white flag to another person. So kind of talk about what does being vulnerable mean as both a parent and a child, and the importance of it in relationships.
I'm glad you're making me elaborate on this, because like you said, vulnerability has that negative connotation to it. Surrendering, and we'll talk about surrendering if we get there with the athlete part. My parents supported me almost 100% unconditionally growing up. I didn't believe it deep down. I was scared to go to my parents when I had a bad grade, when I didn't play well, when my girlfriend dumped me, right? Like I was not, then every time, like after the fact, you know, parents are going to find out, right? Like you can only hide it for so long,
Yeah.
right? And that's
We haven't
why,
seen Susie in a while.
but that's why you have to, like I keep saying, you have to handle the drama so it doesn't fester, right? Like that's part of the whole thing. But it's also like, goes back to the car ride too. If I don't feel comfortable going to my parents, right, problems are going to fester. As a parent, if I don't feel comfortable parenting my child, their problems are going to fester. So the vulnerability piece is just about having that open, unconditional, and honest communication that sometimes isn't taken personally, right? It's like you and I. It's like, hey, I don't think you did this on the call right. It's not personal. We're a little more, of course, transactional than families, right? We're still family. But, you know, I want a child to be comfortable going to their parents. I put my heart into this test and I got a 70. Okay. I want the parent to go just like we tell kids. Where's that 30%? What were you missing? Why did you miss it? If it's geometry, do you need to go through and just do those questions over and over and over until like your hand's numb? Do you need to go talk to the teacher? Right? You don't want to have to go to the parent there and go, I have to tell them. I have to, or else. You want that open avenue of communication, right? And I want to touch on perfectionism as well there, because children want to be perfect all the time and parents want to be perfect parents for their child all the time. But we need to redefine what perfection is. Is perfection in the process or in the results? If your child has an expectation of perfectionism in their results, in their test grades, in their grades, in their sport, at home, can they ever handle failure in the real world? Right? And if you expect to be perfect as a parent, it's going to reflect onto your child. And that's why communication is so important. What does perfectionism look like to our family? Is it about unconditional love? And that's it? I'm happy with that if we get a family there, right? Because if it's unconditional love, it's a place of presence, constant growth, right? Obviously love. And that's what festers community. That's what festers and creates a family that is going to succeed in so many facets and areas of their life.
That's a beautiful thing, man. It's defining what the perfect family, the perfect life is. And I don't necessarily use the word perfect very much in life, but I've been in a place where I'm very, very, very grateful and very aware of the love and joy and peace around me. And this isn't something that I've always felt, but it's something that's always there, right? We're reading a book right now. I think you just finished it. And this is a little bit off topic, but it is right in alignment with everything that we're saying. It's the love, the peace, the joy, the fullness of life is always here. And so for me, like I said, I don't touch on perfection very much in my life. I try not to focus on that word. But I'm in a place right now where I just feel like I have such a full, deep reverence, appreciation, and love for life, because even the setbacks, even the struggle, even the hardships, it's like there's a beauty in it because it's so necessary. And looking back, the way that we can handle this now, it warms my heart, because there was times where, you know, I was in positions similar to some of your children, I'm sure, where any setback tore me down, made me feel less than, made me feel an attack on my self-worth. And now, through a lot of work, a lot of vulnerability, intimate conversations, hard conversations with myself, with others, I'm in a place now where, man, I'm so grateful that I did go through those hard times. I'm so grateful that I am around people that are challenging me and, asking me hard questions and giving me constructive criticism. I was terrible with constructive criticism before, but that was necessary. I had a talk with a friend, and I'm not going to say your name, but man, shout out to you. We had a great conversation yesterday, and we were just chopping it up, and he had a tough end to his sports career, and he was talking about how hard it is still. And I told him that was necessary for that to happen to you. As hard as it is to wrap your mind around it and to accept it, that's the only thing you can do now, is accept it, right? The longer you push that away, reject it, fight it, feel some type of way about it, the longer it's going to linger. There was a reason that happened to you, for the better. You're a father now. You have a great opportunity in your business and life and everything. Use this to your advantage, not only for yourself, right, to work through something that's been holding you back, but now for something for you to teach your kids and to teach your family and teach those that come after you, people that you coach or just come across. Now this is a tool for you. And just to have this perspective, I'm just so grateful. And so, I kind of went a little bit off, on a tangent, but again, trying to be perfect is dangerous. So let's define, what is the perfect life? If the perfect life is that you do what you love and you give your best for yourself and for your family, then you might be living your perfect life and you might not even realize it because you're focusing on something that's outside of your definition. So to your point, defining it is super important. And I encourage all of you to do so. So
I think instead of defining perfectionism for the family, set a standard. When you do the why. Do the why, map it out. Set a standard. Right? Easier said than done. The book's Inner Excellence that you referred to, correct?
No, I was referring to dollars flow to me easily.
Okay, so is that book about money at all?
No.
But let's touch on Inner Excellence because it's essentially the same read.
Best book, yeah.
Right? Why can anybody read Inner Excellence? Because it's not about competition. It's not about sports. It's about how to live life to play sports to the best of your ability.
Live into the fullness.
So really, aren't we just teaching personal development at the end of the day? And how to live the right spiritual life to perform to the best of your ability and to foster unconditional love and constant growth?
That's it.
So really, is sports about, or is peak performance about the training, or is it more of a spiritual thing?
It's absolutely about the spiritual side first. Now, I do want to be 100% transparent with parents. Anybody out there, kids, parents, athletes that are grown, you got to put the time in, right? You got to pay the cost to be the boss. That's my dad used to say it all the time when I was a kid. But in all seriousness, I was watching basketball. They had a screen at the barbershop, and I'm watching these guys do these moves and their ball handling and the way they finish in traffic. And I was thinking about what we do. And what we do is all about, the spiritual side, training your nervous system to be able to handle these moments. And it's complementary to the physical work. You have to put the physical work in, right? You can't just do this and expect to be the best in the world. No, because that would be foolish. That would be just dreaming with no works. And so what we do fully complements the work. And so you do have to get on the court. You do have to be on the field putting in hours. And if you think that you can go to practice and put the same amount of time in as everybody else and be the best, chances are you're going to run out of time.
I would disagree. You know why I disagree.
I get where you're coming from.
But let's not to interrupt you, but let me reframe why, because I don't want to set this expectation of You don't have to work as hard. Mind, body, spirit, right? Jeremy says, let's tie it back to him. When those three are in alignment, your business grows. When one is off, you kind of grow. Obviously, when like they're all off. But you can train all you want and work on your body. You can read all you want, work on your mind. If your spirit's not right, if your purpose, your passion, right, isn't right, you're not going to grow like you can.
So are you disagreeing with the aspect that you don't have to put a lot of time in?
You have to put a lot of time in, but you need to understand and be very honest with yourself. The parents need to be honest and the kids need to be honest about, it goes back to that vulnerability about where they see the mind, body, and spirit at all times. You have to read, work on the mind, whatever that looks like, watch film, go over your playbook. You have to put in, don't get me wrong. I think one of the biggest things about confidence is making sure your body feels right. Making sure you're cut or whatever, like offensive alignment, obviously it's bigger, but like whatever, making sure your body's right, making sure you're strong, but it's a third of the puzzle. Every kid's got their body right, or at least working on it, right? They all train nowadays. They go to the trainer to work on their mind as well. Especially baseball. I mean, they're crazy in baseball now. I see like 12-year-olds like, oh, I'm already a pitcher. I'm like, you haven't hit puberty yet. When I was 12, I played everything. But back to the point. And then the spirit. That's where kids miss it most. Everybody knows they got to train. Everybody knows they got to have the right mindset, right? What does that even look like? But it's different for everybody. But if they're not in alignment, the physical training, its effects aren't what they should be. And that's why I can disagree with you don't have to work harder than everybody else. You have to work smarter, sure, but you got to have your process dialed down and know what you need to work towards, right? It's kind of like, we'll tie it back to business. Look at when we're talking about numbers, we look at the funnel. If we have a problem at the top of the funnel, what's going to be more comfortable? Worry about the bottom of the funnel, right? We don't want to deal with the problem at the top. And that's where a lot of kids get it wrong. Oh, I'm not confident on the field. I'm not processing things right? Because they're not watching film in reality because they don't want to watch film. Oh, let me just go work harder in the weight room. Let me just go put in like 2 or 3 more hours a week in the weight room. Let me just go do more reps. Let me just go do a ton of sprints, maybe run more, eat more, In reality, they need to sleep more so the game slows down. In reality, they need to watch more film. In reality, they need to be meditating so they can get in presence in game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I completely agree with that perspective. I just want to make it clear what I was saying isn't work harder. What I was saying is if you want to be exceptional, you have to be an exception. Alex Hormozi said that. Meaning if everybody shows up to practice for 2 hours, 4 days a week, and you show up to practice for 2 hours, 4 days a week, and that's all you do towards your craft, you will not be exceptional.
Are you sure? Because we have a basketball player, Alex Hickey, who shows up better than everybody else in the court.
Well, you're not hearing me because you're only thinking about the physical. I'm not talking about.
Right.
I'm saying if the kid goes to practice,
right,
practices, goes home, does nothing, he's just like everybody else.
Of course.
So I think that's the misconception you're hearing right now. You're only hearing me saying within the confines of practice. I'm saying if that's the only time, because I know a ton of kids that's the only effort that they put in. That's the only work that they put in. I'm saying not just on the field, but also on the field, right? No disrespect to your player, but Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady were on the field more so than the average player. Did they do more off the court? Of course. They were meditating. They were doing breath work. They were doing pliability on their body and massage and foam rolling and all of that. And that is to my point of what I'm saying too. But I'm saying also, you still got to be on the floor, on the court, on the field, outside of hours of practice if you want to be exceptional. We're not talking about good. Yeah, you could go to practice just like everybody else and put in mental work outside and be good. But you want to be great? then you got to double down on that internal work, and you got to double down on the practice outside of practice. So I don't think we're disagreeing with each other at all.
No, we're seeing it from two different perspectives.
Yeah, it was just an understanding of how it was phrased. So, understand that. It's, again, defining why.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? Vision.
I'm trying to emphasize intention. Okay, so let's take the example. Let's say we had 10 basketball players on the same. Let's take 5. Let's just make it simpler. You had 5 basketball players. Player 1, 10 out of 10 intention. Player 2, 8. Player 3, 6 intention, all the way down 4 to 2. Right? How does that compound over time? Player 1 slowly and progressively creates a bigger gap between the other players. It's not only about time, it's about intentionality. It's about being intentional with everything you do. And that's why I don't believe in the grind. It's a process, not a grind. You don't grind yourself into the ground to become better. You're intentional with your time. I'd rather myself and all my athletes go to the weight room for 30 minutes and get an intentional and actual progressive workout in that's going to move them forward than just be there for 2 hours, talk with their friends, and kind of do half the stuff. Does that make sense? That's where I'm coming from. It's not only time, it's intentionality. I'd rather you be intentional with half the time than everybody else than to just put in more time just to say, oh, I'm working hard, right? Oh, I'm doing this. Yeah, I'll put in the hours. Why is nothing happening, right?
100%.
Because so many kids think they're putting in the time. They think they're putting in the effort. They think they work hard.
I'm going to the gym with my friend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm working hard. I'm watching the film outside. I'm stretching. I'm sleeping, right? But it's not right. It's not the truth, right? And they think they work harder than they do, but they don't put any intention into their work. And that's where a lot of problems can be solved in America, right? Is intention, right? In America. But no, seriously, it's where so many problems can be solved. And it's why peak performance in entrepreneurship, you only work 4 hours a day, but you're intentional with those 4 hours. It's better to be intentional with half the time. It's more effective. It teaches your body that you get stuff done, right? And your body's going to trust itself more. That's where I'm coming from.
Totally agree.
Right? Alignment with mind, body, spirit, time, and intention. Intention is more important than time.
I'll add to that.
Go ahead.
Because I do want to play,
A little bit of devil's advocate.
A little bit, just because I do want to be clear too, because we're not just speaking to the masses. We're speaking to that kid that wants to be 1% and the parents that are fully unconditionally loving that 1% child. Intention is the same. 2 kids. Intention's the same level. They're both 10 out of 10 intention. If this kid puts in a little bit more time on his craft with the same intention, he's going to get more result. And that's what I'm saying. Of course, intention is the baseline. But you can't just do what everybody else does.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? And I know that's not what you're saying. But I just want to make it clear.
Of course.
Kid, hey, you have great intention. I still expect you to do more than just practice with the team. You're still going to show up early to get your mind right, get your body right. You're still going to stay after practice to talk to coach, hey, what did you see today? Those things, those little things. I'm not telling you to run 10 more 110s and crush your legs and to where you're not able to recover. Like, no, I'm telling you, dial in. Where was I on today? Okay. Let me get clear on that. Let me journal that. Where was I not on today?
How can I make it better
Coach,
tomorrow?
How can I make that better? What did you see? Because I felt something.
Yeah.
But what did you see? And that's really what I'm getting at. And I think that athlete, boy, I want to work with you. There's no limit to where those kids can go. And so that's I feel it in my heart when I talk about, that type of person. It's like, because I felt like I was there, but there was so much that I wasn't aware of like what we do, and so.
Let me ask a question there then.
Yeah.
We hear so much about burnout nowadays. I believe burnout comes from mental exhaustion, not physical exhaustion. But that's not my question. My question is, is if kids are not intentional with their time, put more time into their sport versus that kid, that second kid, let's say he was putting more intention into a sport and less time, right? Who's going to burn out first?
Oh, 100% the kid who has no intention.
Who's putting in more time?
Putting in more time, yeah.
Right. And that's why it's so important. Time plus intentionality equals results, right? If we want to create a little equation here. But there's also got to be like another variable of burnout as well, right? Because I have a basketball player, I won't name him, who burnt out first game of the season because he was doing too much, right? He was business, content creation. He's a big content creator, NIL, right? He burnt out. I told him he was going to do it. He's like, no, he did it. He was trying to juggle too many things at once. And the balance when you're younger is key. When you're young is so key, right? During football season, game 8 of the season, man, I wish I knew what meditation was. I wish I knew how to get deep sleep. I wish I knew what journaling was. I wish I knew when my parents said you could detach, I would actually detach. My dad, for as much as he wanted me to succeed, he goes, dude, you gotta do something. You gotta hang out with your friends. Like, I mean, obviously he'd want to watching film, right? Or doing something, but he was like, why aren't you hanging out with your friends? I'm like, I didn't play well. I didn't do this, right? He's like, go hang with your friends. You can watch film tomorrow, right? You can watch it on Monday with the rest of the team, right? And probably back then too, I put a lot of time, and you used to train me, so you know this, right? I wasn't always intentional with the process. I put a lot of time into football, right? Remember we used to do all that mobility after practice, right? Was that ever intentional?
I would say sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But as the season progressed, right, it got less and less and less. And that's when intention really has to come in, right? Because as Nick says, the program kicks in, right? You start to become more automatic. You start defaulting to attitude, to entitlement, right? To just going to get by, right? What do they call it? Just doing the reps. Why am I blanking on this?
Going through the motions.
Going through the motions. There we go. I was blanking on that. But that's why it's so important as like a season progresses, especially in a sport like football, basketball, really any sport in high school. You have to be intentional with the process all the way through in the off season, right? Because if you're intentional with your habits in the off season, right, and you make that your automatic, you make that your standard, you make that the level you fall to, right? When you get done with game 7 and you're like, I'm tired, my body's exhausted, I'm physically exhausted, you have that routine of I'm going to bed, I'm shutting down, I'm detaching, I'm giving myself 48, 24, 48 hours, whatever you give yourself, whatever your standard is, that you know that works for you, right? You're used to it and it works because you fall to the level of your systems and routines.
Love that.
I want to now, let's divert back into parents dealing with coaches. Every parent complains about every single coach they'll ever go through. And guess what? Including themselves if they're a coach, right? I can think about every coach I've ever had. There's been some kind of complaint, concern, right? Always. It comes from a place of love. I get it, right? But what is your advice for parents dealing with coaches?
There's a couple things. So I think it's important before, well, this is kind of tricky too because it kind of depends. Because when you go to high school, I was going to say before a kid starts playing with a coach or a team, it's important for the parent to get to know the coach. And I was going to go with that saying to also decide whether that's the right fit for your kid. Where that can get tricky is if a kid's zoned for a high school and you don't really have the option of going to a different place. So what I would say is, number one, before dealing with the coach, make sure you deal with yourself and you know why, going back to the beginning of the podcast, why you're doing what you're doing for your child, getting clear on why your child's doing what they're doing, playing what they're playing. And then from there, setting a standard for yourself and for your child and how you guys are going to be regardless of external environment, government, coaches, other parents, other teams, weather. And, dealing with coaches is sometimes the best thing, and sometimes it's very difficult. It's very challenging. And so I encourage you parents, like I said, to get clear on those few things, your standard for, yourself and your child, regardless of everything else. And then when it comes to coaches, letting them do their job. They're there for a reason. You may disagree with them, and that's okay. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but let the coach coach. He's there for a reason, and if your kid is on that coach's team, then you have to surrender to that. You have to let that be. And when it's something that you have control of that situation, then you take control of that situation. But when it's a coach, you don't have control of that. And so complaining about it to your kid and complaining to the coach from the sideline, it's not helping anything. It's just teaching your child that they can complain when they don't like something, when something doesn't go their way. And I don't think that's what we want our kids to think. And, maybe the kid agrees with the coach more than you. That's okay. Again, that's why coaches are coaches, because sometimes in certain areas of life, kids need to step away from their parents and get the coaching or the advice from somebody else. So that would be mainly how I would approach it. How would you take that? Same thing, dealing with coaches.
Yeah, you talked to a family last night where they have a professional athlete that coaches the team and he's still playing, and he's very hard on the kids. You have to and it goes back to communication. Why is he hard on me? Does he see something in me? Right? Is that his coaching style? Right? Because if you don't know when he's hard on you, what's your first assumption? This guy doesn't like me. I'm failing. I'm doing really bad. Right? If I know a coach is hard on me, if I have a great relationship with him, like Coach Kurtz from Windermere, I told him he wasn't hard enough on me. Right? And then after that, the days I was tired, the days I didn't want to work hard or do weights, he was hard on me. Why? Because we had communication. I told him, this is what I want. I was a sophomore. I only had one Division I offer. I'm like, I want more. I need to improve. Right? And he came through for me. Why? Because I communicated with him. I think I want a little more out of you, coach. Right? You're a great coach. He's a fantastic coach. I just wanted a little more accountability from him. I wanted him to be hard on me. Right? Because he's a great guy. Right? That's not his coaching style. But then when push came to shove and he was hard on me, I'm like, there's a reason. I know why. Right? It's for the betterment of me, right? And of the people that were around me at the time, because I was training with football guys. Because I had to set a standard. I had to set an example, right? Because I was a captain then. So understand why a coach is doing what he's doing at first. Goes back to the piece of you don't want to let problems fester. You don't want to let drama fester, right?
So how does that, I don't want to interrupt you, but how do you handle that same, or I guess, how do you approach that with a coach who isn't respectable, isn't, doing it for the other's best interests? The coach that we've had in the past that we don't appreciate. How do you coach parents to handle them?
I'm going to think back to a coach that I had that was like that. Unfortunately, though, he did it for the right intention, so I got to switch.
Because it's easy. The coach that is great, he's great with the kids, he's great with the parents, he loves the game, loves seeing them grow. Yeah, it's easy to deal with him. It's easy to see him. And
it's not easy, but it's easier.
Easy if your kid's the main player.
Of course. Right. But like you said, nowadays you just transfer. You just change club teams.
College, oh my goodness. All of it.
I believe in the transfer portal, but not in the way it's being used. But yeah, if you get stuck with the coach, get in your journal. How can I grow as an athlete? How can I grow from this? Right? How can I still communicate with him? Right? Because at the end of the day, If he's not being the best coach he can be, it's a reflection of his internal reality. It's nothing about you, right? A coach coaches, especially before college, right? For the kids in high school and youth, right? Especially youth. They do it for the kids. And if they do it for any other reason, then they shouldn't be coaching, right? But you've got to make the best of the situation. You can't blame the coach, right? Because we can always blame something else, right? We can always blame the refs. We can always blame our coach. Even the good coaches, we could still blame, oh, horrible play call. Oh, why did you call a timeout here? Or volleyball. Volleyball is a good one. Why did you sub? That's all I ever heard in volleyball when I've been around those players and parents. It's like, why did they sub here? Why did they rotate? I'm like, I feel like that's all I ever hear about volleyball. But people are always going to complain, right? There's always a good thing about a coach. There's always a bad thing about a coach. How do you deal with it as a parent? It's a great question. Communication's key, right? Hey, I'm here for the betterment of my son. Call him out. Be honest. I don't think you're doing that for him or my daughter, right? I don't think you're doing that for him or her, right? Why do you coach?
You asking me?
No. Using it as an example. But it's not an easy one, for sure. But you can't complain. That's like the biggest thing. Can't complain. Let's tell them what to do. Of course, make the best out of the situation. But like, what do I like about the coach? Why is he working for me? What's the situation doing for me? Where's the growth?
Yeah, what's it teaching you?
Correct. Because when you get to college, I tell you this, you will always complain about the coach if that's the attitude you have up until high school, right? You will always complain about a coach, right? Because everybody's good in college and coaches can always make the right decision, right? Under many other circumstances. They can also make the wrong decision under many other circumstances. And so it's important to not complain about coaches, right? Before college, even at college. But like, if you get in that routine, you get in that habit, you think it's okay, man, you got something coming for you in college because that's all you're going to do during the season, right? Like when we were at Stanford, that's all kids did. I did it too, right? Like I got moved from fullback to long snapper. I'm like, I don't like this. The coaches are doing this to me. It's like, I accepted to move to that position. I accepted to sign with Stanford. I accepted to come here. I told people, I told the coaches, I told other players, I'm going to do what it takes to win. Push came to shove. Yeah, I may have done it, but I still complained about it. Imagine if I didn't, right? Imagine if I had shut out all the noise, shut out the coaches at home, shut out my parents who had the right to complain, don't get me wrong. Like everybody else, why are you long snapping? Why are you doing this? Tunnel vision. Just long snap and shut up, right? That's all that matters, right? So sometimes maybe it's not the coaches that are the problem. Maybe it's you.
Well, to that, there was a point where I read a book called The No Complaining Rule. I highly recommend John Gordon. Phenomenal author. Tons of great books. But the No Complaining Rule is just that. What does complaining do for the situation? Does it help you in any way? No. When coach says on the line for gassers, nobody wants to do that at the end of practice after all of the hard work we had to do, after a long week of practice. Is complaining going to help us get the best out of that rep or get less out of that rep?
It's going to make it longer.
It's going to make it hurt worse. It's going to make people sulk, which is going to do what for your body language? And so I remember in high school being that guy. Oh, why we got to run a gassers? But when I read that book and I was playing college baseball, whenever I heard my teammates complaining about something, it was like, for what? What's that doing for you?
Are you going to complain when you got to play another inning?
Does that help you though?
Correct. Right.
Like
exactly.
It's not helping you in any way. Like we're going to run this triangle regardless of if you like it or not. You might as well choose to enjoy it in some way. Because at least then you can.
Well, where's the benefit as well? If I push my teammates, right? If I can push them through gassers, come the fourth quarter in football, there's always a game every single year. This is an infamous rule in football. As long as you're not really, really bad, there's always a game where it comes down to the wire. In every single season I ever played, I can name every game right now if you ask me, right? Those are the games where teams are made, right? If you can run those gassers and encourage your teammates and build that community, build a camaraderie, build a culture, build a nervous system of fortitude, right? Of toughness, of being together, right? How's that going to translate when it's 14-12 and you've got 4 plays to get to the other side of the field and get your team in field goal position? Right? It's not that you might as well enjoy it. It's that you got to grow from it. Because in reality, there's a lot of things in game. There's more things in the game than not. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. There are more things in the game that we don't want to do than what we want to do, right? That's the perspective you got to have. What are these gassers doing for me? What are they doing for the team? Right? It ain't sunshine and roses all the time, right? What was your question? What were you going to ask?
I was just going to say, how would you advise parents and athletes to handle all of the distractions that we currently have in our day and age, considering they're still playing sports and trying to be the best they can be at that?
Well, if you have a social media problem, download Opal. All I got to say, put it on timeout mode, right, and set a good time for it. But let's talk about other distractions that are a little less controllable. Bad coaching, bad officiating, poor weather, other distractions like other students that gossip about you, teammates that gossip about you. You can always think back to a parent that definitely didn't like you, right? You can always think back to a teammate that definitely didn't like you, right? How do you handle those distractions, right? It goes back to the inner reality and the internal reality and the external reality. Mm-hmm. It's a reflection of their internal reality. Because if their internal reality was right, they wouldn't complain about you. If their internal reality was right, they wouldn't complain about playing time. Right? So understand that. It has nothing to do with you. Right? It's all to do with them. If they were coming from a place of presence, right? Selflessness, gratitude, joy, unconditional effort, they wouldn't care about you. I guess from a complaining perspective, they would care for you, but not complain about you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But handling those distractions, understand that it's a reflection of their internal reality, right? And so it kind of goes back to the why as well, the purpose, right? Am I going to let my teammate who doesn't care about sports, is only there to put on the jersey, or his parents, right, affect me, right? Or is he complaining because he doesn't want to be there, right? It's about where you place your energy on the court or on the field, right? Am I placing my energy towards this pass, right? It's not what I don't want to think about, it's what I want to think about, right? You tell a skier to not look at the trees, the brain doesn't understand don't, right? So his brain is going to filter out the trees instead of looking at the white. You tell a skier to look at the white, right? You don't tell an athlete to ignore little Johnny because he's annoying, right?
Play not to win or play not to lose.
You don't tell an athlete to play not to lose. Exactly. You tell him to play to win. So it's the same thing. Focus on you, man. Focus on your process. Focus on what's going to get you better. Focus on outside of sports. Focus on what you want to relax or where you want to relax or how you want to relax, right? Is it video games for 2 hours? Is it, going hanging out with your friends, right? The good friends, right? Where are you placing your energy? That's how I would say handling distractions. Where are you placing your energy? Both parents and athletes.
Yeah. And it kind of made me think about, when you make a mistake and people say to you, or you have a hardship or negative thought or feeling or whatever negatively connotated. And they say, just let it go. Just let it go. Just ignore it. What do you say to those people, and how would you advise them to handle something rather than letting it go and just ignoring it?
Letting what go, for example? Because there's obviously that's a great
let's
point.
Let's say they struck out, bases loaded, down to 1 run, bottom of the 9th. Big situation. They struck out. They're upset.
Who's upset?
The player. Everybody's upset. Coach is upset. And you get in the car and parents say, just let it go.
Ooh, just let it go.
Ignore it. Let it go.
It's better than some alternatives. I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Right. But, you got to understand in sports too. A lot of people think when they watch sports, oh, if that field goal would have went in, they would have won the game. It's like, no. If that field goal went in the second quarter, the game would have had a completely different progression. So to his point, parents will probably go, oh, well, if that kid had done this, you wouldn't have been in that position. It's like, you can't say that. You have no clue, right? So don't put the blame on another kid. Don't put the blame on your kid either, right? Putting the blame on another kid is comparison, right? The more we compare to others, the more we compare ourselves to others, right? So comparisonitis is, again, Nick likes to talk about. It's a beautiful point. But how do you handle that, right? The distractions there. Hey, man, I get it. It's a big moment, right? How can you grow from this? Because it's going to come again, right? Understand that. Just accept it now, right? How can you grow from it? Where's the excitement and the potential improvement from that moment, right? Because when our nerves are really high, the weaknesses that we have are very exposed, right? And so I would just tell them, like, look, I know where you're at, man. I failed in life. I failed in business. I failed when I was a kid, when I played. I totally get where you're at. Let's talk about how you can get better from it. And it's that simple. You don't just let it go, right? You can do what Nick advises athletes to do, which is just sit there and think about the moment for 15 minutes so your emotions kind of clear. For older kids, try that, Like if your stats are on max preps, look at them. Just get comfortable with them, right? So, 2 years from now, when the same situation comes up, right? Our body trying to protect itself goes, remember last time you were in that scenario at the plate and you failed? Don't do it again, right? Clear it. Clear the emotions with the process. Improve from it from journaling. Improve from it the next day at the mound, right? Mind, body, get the spirit right.
Love that. Makes me think of Nick's he has his 6 R's, and I always forget one of them. The first one is recognize. Mm-hmm. And that's why I brought up, if that's the only piece of advice we give them is to let it go, they're missing a huge component of it. You need to get the information. Recognize what happened. Why did it happen? Can we relax into that situation? Like you said, sit in that. Allow yourself to be in that. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be frustrated.
Feel those feelings.
Of
course.
And then once you get the information from it, then release it. Then let it go.
Recognize.
Don't just let it go without getting anything from it, because then you're no better off in the next time you do it. Right? Then you sit in it and you tell yourself, your nervous system, I can go through a tough moment, or a moment that I thought was tough is not so tough. It's just a moment.
I'm built for it.
And get better from it.
Recognize, release.
Now when it comes up again, my body's like, shoot.
Recognize, release, relax, re-smile, rebreathe, return.
Rebreathe. That's the one I always forget. Okay.
Yeah. And then athletes, parents, real quick. Recognize that emotion, right? Relax, release, re-smile, rebreathe, return to presence. Don't just let emotions fester. All right, Langston, we've had a great podcast so far. I want to end with this. If you had only 2 minutes to change a parent's life of an athlete, what would you say?
It's a great question. I would start off by saying, parents, number one, unconditionally loving yourself, and then following that by unconditionally loving your child is the most important thing that you can do. Meaning, no matter what your child does, good or bad, letting them know that you support them fully. And so if we start there, if that's the starting point for everything we do from our kids, whether that's investing in their future, helping them to get recruiting, anything, investing in coaching, letting them know that you love them whether or not this leads to them being the success that you want from them, that they want from them. And I think if any child has that, then it's a safe place for them to move forward with confidence, with boldness, and, you know, kind of letting that fear of letting you down go, because it's like they know they're not going to let you down because you're there for them regardless. And Kobe said it. Kobe's father told him, I love you unconditionally regardless of whether you score 60 or whether you score 0 points in a game. He said, but with that, if you want to score 60, you got to work for it. And man, that alone, I think that would change any parent. You know, I know for a fact that it would change any parent, and it would change the kid, and they would appreciate them in the moment and down the line. And so, same question back to you.
You know, I am doing a YouTube video soon of 5 minutes to change an athlete's mindset. So I guess this is kind of a preparation for that, in a sense, in a way. First, start with your why. Start with your child's why, right? Their why are they playing football? Why are they playing basketball? Then your why you are unconditionally committed to their success, their constant growth, and their future. Then I would map out what's it going to take to get there and understand the commitment now, see the bigger picture now, right? Yes, there's going to be a price tag on it. We've all been through it. But that price includes, of course, time, money, effort, right? Those are the biggest three things that go into that. And so understand that early on, but then see the ROI as well, right? The memories, the accolades, the rewards, the growth, the college scholarship, right? Why do a lot of kids play football? It's to get out of where they came from, to get out of that background. So understand not only the tangible ROI, but the intangible ROI that comes along with investing in your child's future. Unconditional support, of course, like you said, right? If your son or daughter has a bad game, bad practice, if they're struggling with grades, understand it first. What's their intention? Why? Are there distractions? Friends, their environment, the stressors of growth, as not only as an athlete, but as a human. Have a vulnerable relationship with your children. Be completely open, right? It negates things and drama festering and growing. And have a great relationship, an unconditional relationship with the other parents and your child's coaches. And that wraps up this podcast. If any of this resonated with you, you can book a call with Langston or me in the description below. Check out our Instagrams. I'm at JLO Transforms. It'll be in the description. He's at Coach Langston. And we can't wait to meet you. All right.
Awesome. See you guys. Thanks for tuning in.